What creepy experience or story haunts you to this day? Part 2. 1. I was in a movie theater with my grandma as a little kid like 10 yo. And we were in the back row, and halfway through the movie this random guy sits down one seat away from me. And I have this really vivid memory of him walking his fingers, like when you pretend your fingers are legs, IDK how else to describe it, across the folded seat between us, while grinning at me. And I was just kind of weirded out and scooted closer to my grandma, and then I got distracted by the movie, and the next time I looked over he was gone. It's such a bizarre memory, I have a hard time believing it happened, but I remember it so clearly, and even what movie it was and then everything that happened afterwards. Still creeps me out. 2. I was living with my cousin, her boyfriend, and his roommate. We smoked weed in the garage. The attic entrance was in the garage, and there was a drop-down ladder to get into it. The door to the outside of the garage on the side of the house didn't lock, so we made sure to keep the one that led into the house locked. There was a few times we would hear what sounded like walking in the ceiling. We would brush it off as squirrels or animals that got into the attic. We would make jokes about the attic people, because it would freak us out. It's how we coped. Oh, have fun being alone while we're all at work today, don't let the attic people get you. Type of thing. One day when my cousin and I were smoking in the garage, we heard an extremely audible snore from the attic. We immediately went silent and stared at each other wide-eyed. We both booked it out of the garage, leaving the bowl behind and running to her car. None of the boys were home. We didn't feel safe enough to check it out, so we just spent the day driving around till her boyfriend, the roommate, got home from work. They went and checked it out. The bowl we were smoking earlier was cached. In the attic itself, there was a makeshift bed with some old blankets, a few bottles of pee, and a few food packages. Not a single person though. Come to find out, a few months after we had moved out, it was her boyfriend's drugged out uncle living in our attic. We ended up really having attic people. 3. 4 times in my life I've had dreams that I can only describe as premonitions. I'm a skeptic, and I still like to mostly believe that what I've experienced is pure coincidence, otherwise it creeps me out too much. These dreams are hyper-realistic and very specific. Usually I wake up from them with an intense need to immediately puke. The first one I had, I saw my good friend hanging out with some of his friends. They were planning to go party and decided to carpool. He gets into the back seat of a blue 4-door sedan just behind the passenger. The car gets into a terrible accident and he's ejected from the car as he wasn't wearing a seatbelt. He dies on the side of the road before first responders can get to him. I woke up, barely made it to the bathroom, and my whole body was shaking. I didn't want to call him and felt like a complete idiot even thinking of calling him, but couldn't shake the feeling this was about to happen. So I call him, tell him the details, and ask that if he goes out that night to please wear his seatbelt. He confirmed they were going to a club that night, but otherwise laughed it off and was like, whatever. About an hour later he calls me, hysterical, crying and repeating that I saved his life. When he calmed down he said that soon after the call his friends pulled up to pick him and others up. One had a brand new blue Honda Civic that they motioned him to jump into. He felt stupid, but he told them he'd actually go in the other friend's car. On the way to the club, while crossing a busy intersection, someone blew a red light and T-boned the Civic, dead on the back passenger side. The car was totaled. The driver and passenger survived, but with serious injuries they still deal with today. Again, I want to believe it was just coincidence, but I've had a few more coincidental dreams like this, and it seriously freaks me out when it happens. 4. When I was little, I had a dream where I was walking through a creepy old building, and when I came around the corner, in red paint or blood, there was this message that said, "Welcome to the Death Factory." And I woke up. I didn't remember the rest of the dream, nor the context, but I was sweating and freaked out, and I told my mom when she came in to see what was wrong in the middle of the night. As a kid I never watched the news, though it was on the TV while dinner was getting prepared. The following night, on the news, there was a story about something, and then boom, up comes a shot of something on the news, and in red on a wall there is a message, "Welcome to the Death Factory." And I screamed and my mom bolted in. I said that was from my dream. She stared at the TV, seemed freaked out too, then just said it's something I must have saw before. But I hadn't, except in my dream. I have had other blips of what I would call premonitions, though the context of them are not clear when they happen. A very brief example: for months I was stuck on the idea, in my office building, that I'd have to know how to get out in case there was a fire and the ceiling collapsed and walls were all wrong. I got to know the fire evacuation routes really well, and counted desks to the main aisle in case I had to crawl, etc. Then 9/11s happened. I don't live in NY or anything, but it was weird and creeps me out. The compulsion to prepare for a disaster was overwhelming. Similar thing in late 2019, I started to marvel at how we had so much at our fingertips in the grocery store, whenever desired. I wondered what I would pick if this convenience was upended and I couldn't get anything reliably. And shelves were just empty, so I bought up some stuff in small amounts over time. Then March 2020, I was staring at empty shelves and unavailable items in absolute disbelief. 5. My mom raised me not to believe in any of this. There are no ghosts, no angels, no paranormal activities. No one has ESP. There is no woo in the world. But, when I was 11 or 12, my paternal grandfather went to the hospital for a minor heart surgery. They assured me he'd be fine. He went through the surgery, woke up, everything was fine. I had no reason to believe anything would happen to him. The next morning, I was in school, and it was about 7:30 a.m. I suddenly felt as if I had to throw up. Not nauseous, not sick, but I absolutely knew that I was going to vomit. I had no time to tell my teacher. I just got out of my seat and ran to the bathroom. After I threw up, I went to the office, told the secretary that I had been sick and asked her to call my mom to come and get me. Once mom came and got me, she was driving me home, and she said, "Well, I was going to wait until you got out of school, but since this happened, I might as well tell you now." And I interrupted her and said, "Don't bother, I already know." It wasn't me talking. It was like I was watching a conversation between two people and I couldn't say anything. I could think my own thoughts, but couldn't voice them. So as this conversation continues, I'm getting mad, thinking things like, what do you know? You don't know what she's going to say. Let her talk. Mom was a bit irritated and said, "You can't know, they called after you went to school." I said, "You don't have to tell me, I already know." By now, Mom sounds mad, and she said, "Cut it out, I need to tell you." And I interrupted her again and said, "It's okay, I already know that Granddad is dead." And me internally screamed, "What?" Mom jerked the wheel and almost drove the car into the ditch, screaming, "You can't know that." And I just shrugged and looked out the window. That wasn't me either, I was crying inside. The voice felt nothing. Except I could feel a little frustration from it. It turns out my granddad had died at 5 a.m., and my aunt and uncle called to tell her at about the time that I threw up. I do not feel like I had a dream of my granddad's ghost. And I have no idea who was talking for me. Years later, I tried to ask her questions about it and she did not want to talk about it. It was like pulling teeth, but she finally admitted that she remembered the conversation. She did say one thing that stuck out, and was angry when she said it. Your grandma knew things too. Her mother. I tried to ask her what that meant. What kinds of things did grandma know, but she told me the conversation was done. Now I'm not sure what I believe.
Thanks for watching. If you got this far, leave a comment, like if you liked it, and follow for more.